here we are having a discussion about vets and VA loans. And the reason why it came up, I have encountered veterans out there that served in the military and are unaware, for some reason, of the many benefits that they have at their disposal with getting a VA loan. And today with me in our episode here talking about vets is Brian Cardenas of UM Mortgage, of which will provide his information. But it hit me, this subject, talking about vets and their benefits, because I'm a vet.
Yeah.
And I know that when I got out just a few years ago, I got out in 91. I thought I knew it all, but I didn't. And it wasn't until a coworker, I was in law enforcement, as many of you know. I was a rookie, and someone took me under their wing and started kind of just telling me of all the benefits of me being a vet, having him served as well. And so that kind of got me going, and I was able to eventually stop paying rent, because there's a lot of vets paying rent out there.
Yeah.
And they got the proper FICO score, they got the finances, but they don't know the benefits.
Yeah.
What can you tell us, Brian, about VA benefits with regard to mortgages?
Yeah, it's interesting because when you separate, you don't get a class on it. Like they're doing better now than they used to when you separated. But they're still, like, I talk to veterans all the time, and they separate and they go through this their meeting, and they walk out of there thinking that the VA is going to give them a loan without really qualifying. That's what they walk away from it thinking. And there's still qualifications that are required, but most of the time, especially when you're serving, that's really the opportunity, because as you're PCSing, around different parts of the country, you can actually be acquiring properties and then changing them into rental properties as you're moving around the country and putting very little down, because one of the other misconceptions that a lot of people have is that you get to use your VA loan once.
Exactly.
Or you can only have one VA loan at a time. Totally untrue. Like, we have veterans who might have 3 or 4 VA loans at a time. And that's the power of knowing what your benefits are. And unfortunately, you guys aren't taught about it. So you really have to find people who specialize in that to make sure that you're taking advantage of all those benefits that you served for. I mean, you guys sacrificed, and you did so for the greater good of the country. And at least we can do is teach you what you paid for.
Correct.
With blood, sweat, and tears. And so definitely connect with somebody who knows VA.
You hit a good point there, because I was emphasizing on those that served and got out and, have a 9-to-5 job maybe. But there's a portion of the vets that they're active duty.
Yeah.
They're doing a career. And here we have Luke Air Force Base, and I've tried working or helping some of the active duty, but their frame of thought is, I'm only going to be here for 2 to 3 years, Angel. Why would I buy? I'm just going to go rent. And they go and rent.
Yeah.
Because they're going to get PCS orders, and they're going to go somewhere else and rent again.
Yep.
And some of these folks do 20 years or more in the military, active duty, and never buy because they justify, no, I'm not going to stay here. But I've known others that have taken full advantage, of the benefits, where they end up retiring at 20 years, or if you're an officer, who knows, maybe 30 years. I know of one in particular, 30 years, and has, I think, 5 to 6 properties.
Yeah.
That portfolio started years when he first got into the military.
Yeah.
Now that is obviously supplementing his retirement, where he's walking on the beach in St. Croix, and he's got passive income in addition to his military pension. Isn't that a beautiful thing?
Yeah. I mean, there's so much power in investing in real estate, and what most active duty service members just don't realize is what you can do with that. And then when you separate, you're also not taught anymore about what's available to you. And if you acquire a property, just to your point, like if you think I'm going to be here for 2 years, why would I want to do it? Okay, well, let's figure out how much you paying in rent over those 2 years.
Yes.
You know, let's say you're spending $2,000 a month in rent. Well, you've spent $48,000 in payments over that 2-year period of time. Well, what if you took that $48,000 and put that into a property that is appreciating? I mean, maybe it was $300,000 at the time that you purchased it, and it's gone up by 5% a year.
Yes.
Well, now you've almost covered that entire cost of making monthly payments that you would have been wasting on rent in appreciation on that house. And then you've got more entitlement remaining. There's
Yes.
a bonus entitlement that most people, again, don't realize that you have. So let's say you get PCS and you're going across the country, do the same thing.
Let's talk a little bit about entitlement, because what does that exactly mean? The VA entitlement.
Yeah, basically what the VA has come up with is we're going to guarantee a loan to the lender to entice the lenders to make these loans to active duty service members and veterans under more favorable conditions than what the average home buyer can do.
Wow.
You know, most buyers, you got to put, down payment down. If you don't put 20% down, you got to pay mortgage insurance, all this kind of stuff. With VA, they make the guidelines more flexible, 0 down. And so the lenders, obviously they're taking on a little bit more risk because you haven't put any money down. So that's what the VA did, is they said, okay, we're going to step in and we're going to guarantee this loan for you lenders, make these loans under our rules, and we'll protect you. So they give you a certain amount of entitlement. It's 36,000, but it's kind of a weird number because there's all these formulas we do.
Mm-hmm.
And we just calculate how much did you utilize based on the purchase price, because they're going to guarantee about a quarter of it. And then based upon what you used the first time, if you go buy another house, then you're going to have another amount available based on the county that you live in. And then as long as that remaining entitlement is enough to cover that 1/4 of the new purchase price, then you can do 0 down. Now you can also do it if you're buying a more expensive house than what you can do at 0 down. You can still use your VA.
You got to pay that difference.
Just pay a little difference. I mean, you might be 3% down, 5%
It's still
down.
a good loan.
It's the best loan that's possibly out there.
In my opinion, it's the best loan in the world.
Yeah, it's
There's
not an
nothing like
opinion.
it.
That's a fact. It is a fact. That is the best loan that's out there. And the other thing that a lot of people don't realize is that there isn't a limit on how much you can get a VA loan for. So you can get a loan for $1.5 million. You can get a loan for $2 million. I mean, you can do that with 0 down on a VA loan.
Now, can a vet using VA loan get a duplex, for example,
Absolutely.
and they could live in one unit and rent the other?
Mm-hmm.
Can they not?
Absolutely. Yeah, up to 4 units.
Isn't that beautiful?
You get the other 3 units or the other unit to pay most, if not all, of the mortgage payment. Now that rent that you were going to pay, you don't even have rent. You got somebody else making your payment, and that home just keeps going up in value.
It's just a beautiful scenario.
Yeah.
And I say this because I failed to do these things years back.
That's how we learn.
And that's why I get passionate about it when I see some folks that don't realize how good they have it. And some of these folks that I'm referring to have good jobs, have great FICO score, and continue to pay the rent, and they have their VA entitlement just sitting there,
Yeah.
wasting away. What about funding fee? What can you tell us about funding fee with regard to VA loans?
Yeah. So the VA funding fee is the way that the VA pays for the insurance. So think about the VA as the insurance provider for the lender. So they're protecting the lenders by getting them to make these loans at more favorable terms. And so that protection through that entitlement comes from the veterans having to pay a funding fee when they purchase the home. So depending upon whether you've used your entitlement before or if it's a subsequent use, it varies a little bit if you put some down payment down as well. But it can range from around 1.5% up to almost 3.5% that is financed into the loan. So they don't make you come out of pocket with it cash. They just add it on top of the loan amount. So it's not a big difference on the monthly payment that you're making, but that money goes to the VA. It helps pay for that program so that when they do have claims, if someone got into a foreclosure situation, they've built up that money in reserve to pay the lender. But the other thing that a lot of people don't necessarily know is that if you are receiving disability from the military, that funding fee gets waived.
Beautiful.
So you have no funding fee. I mean, that could be huge because I have one right now. The funding fee for this gentleman is like $44,000.
Yes, and one thing to talk about the funding fee is, and correct me if I'm wrong, it doesn't work against the appraisal, does it not? So if the house is, for example, $420,000, but the funding fee is $14,000, $15,000, but the appraisal comes in at $420,000.
Correct.
You can still get the loan.
Right.
You can still get the house. The funding fee doesn't work against you for appraisal purposes.
Yeah, when the appraisal comes in, we just need it to appraise for the purchase price. As long as it appraises for the purchase price, you're good. That funding fee gets to be added on top of there.
And so that is a beautiful thing because it's 100% financing to include the funding fee. If you're a disabled vet, as you indicated, then there's no funding fee. It is waived.
Correct.
So that's even a lot better, right?
Yeah, it's a tremendous thing because there's that flexibility there that the VA is giving you these flexible guidelines to meet, and then they're providing the insurance and they're not holding it against you. Like they're not making you come out of pocket with it. They're not making your appraisal have to come in higher. It's all about making home ownership a reality for veterans. It's another thing that most people don't understand is there is so much flexibility with the program. The VA is instructed to do whatever they can to make the loan. Some underwriting with other loan programs, sometimes you feel like the underwriter who's the person deciding on approval or denial on a loan, sometimes you might feel like you're working against them a little bit, like they're trying to find a way to kill the deal, so to speak. Yes. That is not how it is with VA. They have specifically stated that they want the underwriters to try to find a way to make the deal work.
You were mentioning something about also there are times that the vet's debt, a portion of it can be potentially paid off. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah, so that's another misconception that a lot of people have, both with just the veterans, but also with the real estate community, is that they think that there's a limit of 3% or 4% in seller concessions that can be received to go toward closing costs. And that's not true for VA. VA actually allows the seller to pay all of the closing costs. They can also pay up to 2 discount points to help buy the interest rate down lower. And then in addition to that, they can get another 4% to go toward the veteran.
It's quite a bit of...
It's kind of a good deal, huh?
Yeah.
So like you think the 4%, well, you can't get cash back out of that 4%, but you can take that 4% and you can use it to pay off debts. So let's say, for example, they had a truck payment or a credit card payment or something like that, and that was going to be a strain on the budget because you've got a big car payment. You can take that 4% of that purchase price and use that to pay off a car, as an example.
And get the loan.
Yeah.
So, wow. I mean, that's unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tremendous program, and it has to be taken advantage of. And one of the things, too, that another misconception that we hear a lot of times is regarding the appraisal. So there's this idea out there in the real estate community sometimes where you may have an agent representing the seller that says, oh, well, we don't want to take a VA loan offer. We think the appraisal is going to come in low. Usually what they say is the appraisals always come in low. And we actually did a study last year on all the loans that we did a company-wide, so thousands of loans, to determine how often did appraisals come in low on each different loan type. There was conventional loans, FHA loans, and VA loans that we looked at. And VA loans actually came in at or above sales price more often than any other loan type.
Wow.
So the opposite of what people think is the reality of what's happening. The other beautiful thing about the VA loan is it gives you 2 opportunities to contest the appraisal. So the first one is if the appraiser thinks that they're going to bring the value low, they have to do something called a tidewater notification. And that's where they tell the lender, and the lender communicates to the agents that The appraiser thinks the value is going to come in low. It gives the agents the opportunity to provide additional comparable sales to justify the purchase price that they went under contract on it. So they get that information ahead of time. A lot of times the appraisals end up coming back at the purchase price if the agents gave them good comparables. But if they still bring it in low, there is a process where we can do a reconsideration of value that is different than every other loan program. Normally, when we contest the value, we got to go back to the original appraiser that did the appraisal and basically say, hey, us realtors and lenders, we think you did a bad job. Can you agree with us that that appraisal should come in higher? So you can imagine how difficult it is to get somebody convinced that they didn't do their job right. That's the thing that pays them their bills. So it very rarely happens on an FHA or a conventional loan. On the VA loan, though, we don't go back to the VA appraiser. We bypass them and we go directly to the VA Regional Loan Center. And the veteran can actually write a letter to the VA telling them, hey, I understand that this came in, a few $1,000s low or whatever, but I want to go ahead and still purchase at this price. I think that it's worth this much, and basically get the VA to agree to increase their valuation. And it doesn't have to get agreed upon by the appraiser. So you never get to do that with any other loan program.
So there's just benefits after benefits, and the list goes on. And anyone out there, either you're a vet and you're not taking full advantage of the VA benefits with regard to purchasing a home, or maybe you know of a vet that can certainly benefit from this information, I would ask that you share this information. We are always trying to partner up with proactive lenders. I was telling Brian of a brother from another mother who wanted to purchase a home and had an existing VA loan on the primary home, of which now he wanted to rent to buy another home, a larger home. The lender he chose was working with him and provided him with a conventional loan. Because of not wanting to lose the house, we placed the offer with the existing pre-qualification letter, conventional loan. But nonetheless, I couldn't keep my mouth shut, and I did challenge the lender that he was using. Does he not have existing VA entitlement that he could benefit from? So she kind of said, well, let me get back with you. It took like 5 or 6 days. We were already under contract because we didn't want to lose the house. But lo and behold, she came back and said, OMG, he does have existing VA entitlement, which is advantageous for him to use. Well, that was my argument from the get-go. So not every lender out there, if you're a vet and you don't know whether or not you have existing VA entitlement or what the term is, or because there's many people that may have purchased a house with using their VA benefits, but as life would have it, there's life-changing events that require them to move elsewhere. Get yourself a good proactive lender, of which Brian is one, that knows VA benefits inside and out, as we've been discussing, that you can make sure you're taking full advantage of your benefits and not miss out. As the story that I just explained, he could have missed out on getting another VA loan. So,
well, thank goodness you didn't keep your mouth shut.
Yeah, so
you need a real estate professional that doesn't keep their mouth shut.
I mean, because it broke my heart. I said, geez. Yeah. I use existing VA entitlement, but I didn't have a whole lot. As you were saying, you can use your VA entitlement, the existing VA entitlement, to purchase another property. It depends the property that you want to buy.
Yeah.
If it's not going to cover the 100% financing, and you still want that property, and the numbers jive, if you will, I had to give 5% down payment.
Yeah.
I still wanted the house. And so I did it.
And it's still going to be a better loan.
Oh, big time.
Because 5% down on a VA loan means no mortgage insurance. The alternative is with mortgage insurance. and the interest rate on the VA loan is going to be lower than a conventional loan as well. So you got a better loan all the way around, even though you put 5% down.
Yes, indeed. And so can a vet buy $1 million house?
Yeah, I'm doing right now $1,478,000.
And the reason why I brought that up, because sometimes there's this idea that a vet can only go but so high in what they can buy.
It used to be that way.
It used to be that way.
So yeah, to be clear, that misconception just comes from the fact that it did used to be that way, but obviously people don't keep up on all the inner workings.
But that's where we come
lending
in.
world. That's
and this is
exactly
why we're having this conversation.
Yeah.
There's a lot more to it than what potentially someone that 20 years ago, when they bought their house using their VA benefits, things change.
Yeah.
And things can change for the better, which I believe they have. And so if you're looking to buy another house, please let us know. The Grimaldo Group is here to assist you. And of course, we have Brian that can assist you with your VA loan. Any last words before we jet out, if you will?
No, just if you have served at all, bring it up and talk to your real estate professional, talk to your lender, because you guys made big sacrifices for this country, and the least that we can do. And our side of the job is to make sure we're doing everything we can to help you get your home and build your wealth. So bring it up and make sure you're working with the right people.
Yes, because several years ago, back in 2004, I stepped in to buy a new house. And for whatever the reason, the lender for the builder encouraged me to do a 5-year ARM. And I was ignorant, a lot more ignorant than what I am now. And I didn't even say, well, hold up, I'm a vet. I told him I'm a vet, and no, you're better off using this 5-year ARM. He justified it, danced around, and did all kinds of stuff. If someone's telling you that you're better off doing some other type of loan and for you not to use your VA loan, I don't know, I would question that.
I would question it a lot. There's one scenario that I can think of that I did recently where it was not a better idea to do the VA loan, and that was where the veteran was engaged and wanted his fiance on the loan with him. And they weren't going to get married before they were closing. And in that situation, that's something called a joint loan, where you basically cut that entitlement in half. So you end up having to bring like 14.3% down. And in that particular case, they just didn't have that much. The loan would have been better, but they didn't have that much to put down. So we ended up having to do a conventional loan to get him in, I think, with 5% down. So.
Well, maybe they should have just gone down to the courthouse, gotten married, and that would have straightened that out.
It was suggested. Let's put it that way. It was suggested. The fiance wanted nothing to do with that. She wanted everybody there. She didn't want to get married and then have a fake ceremony. So
I don't know. For the benefits that he kind of missed out, I would have convinced her, we're still going to have the church wedding and all in due time. But in order to purchase this house and use my VA benefits, let's just go down to the courthouse. No one has to know.
Yep.
And now we got the piece of paper, and it's going to make things better for us.
He was okay with it. She was not. And I don't think they wanted to start out the marriage on that kind of fight.
Oh, I understand. I've been married for almost 25 years, happily married to say the least. And but we'll continue to help vets. And again, if you know of anyone that's a vet, maybe you're not a vet, please speak to them and let them know about this podcast or video that we just presented, and give us a call. And we're always eager to help families create wealth through homeownership. God bless.